Finding the perfect foundation for oily skin can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's nearly impossible. You have to find the right formula that controls shine without making you look matte or thick and cakey, but I have got you today. If you're new to my channel, my name's Marlena. I've been a cosmetic brand owner and product developer for over 15 years. I've tested hundreds of formulas over the years, hundreds, no exaggeration, and I've narrowed it down today to what I believe are the top 10 foundations for oily skin. So this is our criteria we are judging every foundation by. The first one obviously is the price. How much is this going to set me back for this foundation? Number 2 is the shade range. How many colors does this foundation have? Am I going to have a hard time finding the color that matches my skin, or is there a wide range of colors? Next is the base formula. Is it oil-based, silicone-based, or water-based? That matters because that's going to tell you what type of primers to use or not use underneath to give you the best results. Then next we have the finish. Is this a dewy foundation? Is it satin? Is it matte? All of that matters because those are going to be compatible with the different skin types that you have. It's going to tell you what type of look to the skin that you're going to get. And then we have coverage. How much coverage does this foundation have? Is it light coverage? Is it full glam coverage? That will help you all decide which one is best for you specifically depending on what type of coverage that you need. If you're a light and kind of natural girl, you want just a little bit of pigmentation versus someone who likes full glam, lots of coverage, hiding lots of things under their skin, that's going to help you choose based on what preference you have. Then the next we have viscosity, and I talk a lot about viscosity on this channel, you guys. It is the flow of a liquid, basically. When talking about cosmetics, it's how thick or thin a foundation is. That's really, really important because that's gonna tell you what type of tool that you need to use to apply that foundation. If you're applying it with a sponge on every foundation, you're not getting results that you want. You may hate that foundation, but it may not be the formula. It may be that you're not applying it right because you're pairing the wrong tool with the viscosity of the formula. And then lastly, what is the best way to apply it? Again, what are the tools you're gonna use to apply that foundation? And then I'm gonna wrap each foundation up with the exact audience of who I think should buy that specific foundation. Really quickly, let me show you the difference of viscosity of foundation. So I have the Haus Labs foundation. On this side, I have a Milani foundation. They're both in this video. When you tilt your hand up, I like to put a drop on your hand. This is one of the first ways I test a foundation is I put a drop on my hand and I tilt it up straight, just like this. And I wait to see how is that foundation gonna flow? What is the viscosity? Is it a thin formula? Is it a thick one? This is the Haus Lab ones. Do you see how thin it is? Here's the Milani. It's thick. It just sticks right there. It's not moving at all. So I'm gonna use 2 totally different tools for these foundations to get the results that I want. In no particular order, let's start with the first one, which is the Givenchy Prisme Libre Skin Caring Matte Foundation. These brands, you guys, they have such long names. Like, just name it like Givenchy Matte Foundation. It's not hard. So this foundation, the cost of it is $58. This is a luxury brand, so obviously it's gonna cost a little bit more. The shade range, it comes in 35 colors. So I feel like the shade range is pretty good. Is it the best I've ever seen? No, but I think you have a great chance of finding your color in this range. The base formula of this is silicone based. Most foundations are. So I think most on this list are gonna be silicone based. That matters because if you're using a silicone based primer on your skin and then you have a water or oil based foundation on top, sometimes they don't play nicely. So I like to mention the base formula just so you guys know. To know if your foundation is silicone based, look at the top of the ingredient deck in the first 5 ingredients. If it has things like dimethicone, trimethicone, cyclopentasiloxane, those are all silicones, and silicones are the main ingredient that you have in face primers. I have the Lancome La Base Pro. Do you see the texture of this, you all? See how it's kind of a jelly type formula, and when you blend it out on the skin, it's slick. It's almost like lube. I'm just gonna say, you guys, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be dirty or go there, but I'm just saying that's what it feels like. It's very slick type silky feeling. That's the best way I can describe the texture you're looking for. So a face primer, if it has lots of silicones in it, it's going to look like that. But look at the canvas it puts on my hand. Look at this hand compared to this one. It smooths it out, it camouflages it, it just gives you a nice finish. So if you're going to use that primer, you wanna make sure the foundation on top is silicone based as well. Okay, the finish of this one is obviously matte. I feel like this is a demi matte because it's not super flat or cakey. It has just a very, very slight sheen to it, but it's not flat. When you think of finishes of foundation, you guys, it's almost like paint on the walls. You have your eggshell, your satin, your matte, your glossy. Same concept with foundations. The more matte it is, the more flat appearance. There's no shine to it all. This is demi matte. So me personally, I like that the best because it's still mattifying for oily skin people, but it doesn't look flat and lifeless, if that makes sense. sense. The coverage of this one is medium pigmentation, so you can build it up if you want, just to even out the skin tone, do one layer, but if you need extra coverage, just add another layer. Just add a second layer and you have lots of options with it. So great coverage for it. The viscosity of it is moderately thick. Do you see how when I put it on my hand, it will start to drip down just slightly, but it's not so thick to where it's like a little ball on top of my hand. So the best way that I like to apply moderately thick to thick foundations is going to be with a sponge, like a beauty blender, where you just tap it in like this, or you use a stippling brush like this one. You're stippling that product in. That kind of method, that tapping motion with a thick formula, is going to not cause it to be streaky or get stuck to the tool and give you a patchy appearance. So I really like a tapping motion with either a stippling brush like this or with a sponge. Again, tapping, or you could even do rolling would be good, but no swiping because it's so thick. It won't spread across the skin evenly because it's a thick viscosity. So who do I think this foundation is best for? I think it's best for those who have combination to oily skin, those who want really great coverage, but a more demi-matte kind of natural finish. I think it will work for all age groups. If you're over 40 and you have oily skin, I think it will work. But if you're over 40 and have dry skin, you're not gonna like it. It's gonna be too matte for you. So oily combination skin, any age group, those who want medium to full coverage. Next foundation we have is the Prada Soft Matte Foundation. This is a newer foundation. I think it just launched this year, you all. I love the packaging of this. I think it's an amazing product. I love that it's refillable. So you can pull the foundation out and you can buy just this when you run out and put it into the outer sleeve so you use less packaging. So I do love the packaging. I think they did a great job with that. The price of this is $70, so it is steep. I'll just say that she is pricey, but it's Prada, so what are we expecting here? The shade range of this is 33 colors, so I do feel like it's a decent enough range. Most people, not all, but most people should find a color that matches them. The formula base of this is also silicone based, so again, you can wear it with any sort of face primer underneath. It'll blend beautifully. It'll give you a nice flawless look. And then the finish of this one is matte as well. I like having matte foundations for oily skin because you don't want to add dewiness on top of oily. You're just gonna look like a greasy chicken wing. So if you have oily skin, try to get a demi-matte to matte type of finish. It's gonna help keep that skin looking natural and not too oily or greasy. The viscosity of this one is moderately thin. Do you see how it's dripping down my hand? So I like using a brush like this, the Anisa Pinnacle Foundation brush, and I take it and I buff it into the skin. When you have thin viscosity formulas, you want to do a buffing motion. You don't want to use a sponge. If it's a thin formula, the sponge is going to soak it up and you're going to waste product for one, and then you're going to get a patchy application because most of the product's in the sponge. So when you go to blend it out, nothing is sitting on the skin and it's going to be patchy. So I like doing a buffing motion like this with a buffing brush for that thin of a viscosity. You could also do a stippling brush like this if you guys want to tap it on that way. That would work as well, but personally my favorite is buffing it on with a brush kind of like this one and just really working it into the skin. So who is this foundation best for? I would say it's over 40 crowd who have combination to oily skin because it's such a thin viscosity. It really buffs into the skin well. It doesn't look thick or cakey. So if you have lots of fine lines, pores, texture on your skin and you want to really work it into the skin so it gives a flawless look. It's also best for those who want a lightweight foundation that's not too heavy. It's very thin, very comfortable wear. If you don't like a lot of makeup on, but you still want great coverage, it's lightweight, so you could wear it for everyday running errands or just light makeup application versus full glam makeup. So one tip, you guys, before applying your foundation for any skin type, but especially for oily skin, because for oily skin, you can tend to be a little bit acneic prone, you can have a bit larger pores because you have natural oils coming through the pores, trying to hydrate your skin, so your pores can be a little bit larger. You guys, I don't even have oily skin, I have combination, I have this issue. I have lots of pores going in here. I have pigmentation. I'm getting fine lines, like aging and the hormones is doing its wonders on me, you guys. So what I started using this year is a microneedling tool, and it's by Banish. There's a ton of different microneedling ones out there. The rollers were really popular. I don't know if some of you guys still use those, but in the research I did, it showed that the rollers can be a little bit more aggressive on the skin as you're rolling it. If you roll too hard, it can pull up a little bit of the skin. As soon as I read that, I was like, no thank you. So I'm doing stamping instead. So Banish is a women independent owned brand, and I will always happily support women owned brands, especially if they're independent like this. And she has a tool called the Banisher. They just launched the 3.0. Let me show this on camera so you guys can see. So it's a tool that has very fine needles at the top. So I use this just once a week to help with my pigmentation and my pores. And I'm starting to see some difference in here. My pores have come down. My pigmentation, I don't know if you guys can see, has gotten much better. I used to have freckly skin all over here after I gave birth to my daughter, and I feel like this is helping that. But it's a tool like this. It's a stamping tool. And what you do is you take it and you just gently press it on the skin like this. You're just going to stimulate the collagen. You're gonna help promote healing. And what this does is this helps improve your skin texture to get rid of some of those pores. And so doing this once a week, show you guys as I'm doing it, it'll help stimulate the collagen and just improve all of that texture. So this is one of the tools I have in my kind of toolbox of skincare things that I'm doing to try to slow down aging as much as possible, improve my texture, my pigmentation, all of that. So you guys can see the skin. It doesn't hurt at all for me, but you will just feel slight pricking in there. But I like a kind of stamping microneedling tool like this versus the roller. I feel like the roller, because I'm heavy-handed, you guys, so I was like, so I would be like and tearing up my skin. No, this I feel is a bit more gentle and it gives me more control. And because it has a smaller head like this, I feel like I can use it only in the places where I really want to target those pores and pigmentation. And then the part to clean it, you guys, so after you use it, you just pour some alcohol in this little cup. You let it sit. It has to be 70 to 90% alcohol. You put the tool in there. You let it sit for a good 5 to 10 minutes so it can disinfect. You let it dry, put it back, and then you can use it again. They even give you a second head in here if you guys need to use another one if you feel like this one is getting dull. Because I've used their other products like their vitamin C and some other things that I love. My pumpkin mask, I don't know if you guys can see in my shower, there's like a little black tub in there. That's their mask. Freaking incredible. So good too. So many products from the brand that I like. I will do a separate video on all of that. But Banish is sponsoring today's video because I've enjoyed the product so much and I love supporting independent women-owned brands. I have and always will. So you guys can check out all the information in the description box below for the Banisher 3.0. Any skin type can benefit from this, but especially for those of you who really just want your foundation to lay down well and sit on your pores nicely, just really improve your skin texture. So whatever you're put on top looks more flawless. It's a great tool to have. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys too, when you use this, make sure your face is clean. So wash your face, pat it dry so it's not wet, and then you're going to use the tool. And then after, you can use the Banish serum on top. That's that vitamin C and vitamin E. It's gonna soak right in and be super effective, and then put a light layer of moisturizer on top. So I forgot to tell you guys that. Don't use this on a dirty face. Don't moisturize, just wash your face, pat it dry. This serum, moisturizer. The teacher in me is coming out with that. Do you see this? I'm pointing. So thank you so much, Banish, for sponsoring today's video. I really appreciate it, and I really do like all of your products. Next foundation we have is the Urban Decay Face Bond Foundation. This is one of my favorites. I have fallen in love with this year. This is a newer foundation as well. It comes in a packaging like this. It's such an innovative packaging because it's a squeeze tube on top. Most foundations obviously are in a pump. This one is not. I think they did a great job with the packaging. It's very easy to take on travel. I throw this in my travel bag because it's easy and I don't have to worry about it breaking. So love the packaging. The cost of this one is $40 and it comes in 40 different colors. So great shade range. I feel like the undertones are really nice. They're not too orange for me. The base formula of this is silicone based as well. So wear it with any primer that's silicone based. I think it'll do great. It wears fine on its own as well. You don't have to have a primer, but if you use one, it'll blend well. The finish of this one is also matte. So I personally, for this one, you guys, I really like wearing it on the center of my face. I have combination to dry skin. So a lot of these foundations I can't wear all over my face unless it's like in the middle of summer and I want something that's more matte. But for this one specifically, I really like applying it to the center of my face and with a sponge because it mattifies the center of my face where I tend to get a little bit oily, and I don't have to use as much powder because this is a long wearing foundation. Once it sets, it locks in. I think Urban Decay said it's supposed to last like a crazy amount of hours. I've tested it for about 12 hours. It lasted 12 hours for me and it was fantastic. The coverage of this one is medium, so it's not full coverage, it's not light, it's right down the middle. So I think it's great if you want to add extra layers. Actually, let me show you guys here. You see how it evens out the skin tone, but it's not super thick or cakey. It's not so pigmented where it looks like a mask. It's just a nice middle of the road. And the viscosity of this one, let me put a fresh drop down so you guys can see. Come on, I'm almost running out, you guys, because I've been wearing it a lot. I would say it's medium viscosity. It's not overly thick, but it's not dripping down the hand. So you could, like I said, apply it with a sponge, tap, 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 tap like this. You can also take a stippling brush. If you want to apply this all over the face, you can stipple it with that. I think those are my best tools I would pair this with to get the best results. If you try to use a buffing brush with this one, because it's not a thin formula, it can tend to stick to the brush. And as you go to buff it, it's going to streak a little bit or give you a patchy appearance because it's grabbing it and it's sticking. It doesn't glide well, if that makes sense. So who is this best for? I would say this is best for oily skin people. I wouldn't say dry. If you have dry skin, you're not going to like this, you guys. If you have combination to oily skin and you need a long wearing foundation, anyone who works 12 plus hours, you need a foundation that's going to lock it down, last for many, many hours, gives you medium pigmentation, so it's great for every day. It's not too full coverage. That would be the crowd that's going to like this foundation. Next foundation we have is the Lancome Teint Idole foundation. This is a staple, a classic. It's been around for a long time and for good reason. The price of this one is $57, so I feel like it's fair considering it is a prestige to kind of leaning towards luxury end of a brand, but the shade range on this is amazing, 55 colors. So you should be able to find a color that matches for you. Amazing shade range on this one. Base formula of this is also silicone based. Most foundations are, so I don't need to talk about that anymore. And the finish of this one is demi matte. So when you first apply it, it's gonna have some sort of sheen to it like this, but once it dries down, it's going to give me demi matte. So it's not flat or cakey or anything like that. And the pigmentation of this one is full coverage. So if you're looking for something demi matte, still looks a bit like skin, has a bit of bend to it, but it gives you full coverage for those days when you're wearing a full face of makeup, this is gonna be a great one for you. The viscosity of this one, let me show you guys, is moderately thin. Do you see how when I put a drop down, it's starting to move a little bit? If I wait about 30 seconds or so, you'll see it start dripping down here. That's why this is such a well-loved foundation, because it's the best hybrid of being a thinner formula, so it's not thick or cakey, but it gives you the full coverage that you need. That combination is very rare, and I think that's why this is such a cult favorite foundation, because it gives you the coverage you need but without being really thick. So the best way I personally like applying this foundation is with a stippling brush like this and stippling it on. You could use a buffing brush as well because it's not too thick, where I think it would work really well with buffing, but I like doing a stippling motion. It just gives me a more flawless finish to the skin and it helps it just set a bit. And then see how once it's dry, there's just a very tiny sheen to it, but it's not dewy. It's definitely a demi matte. Okay, so who is this foundation best for? It's for those who have combination to oily skin. If you are over 40 looking for a lightweight thin formula that gives you full coverage, if you are a full glam girl, you have texture on your skin, lines, pores, anything like that, and you need something thin that's not gonna cake up and make you look like you have a mask on, this would be great for you. It's also long wearing, in my opinion. I have it last many hours. So if you work long days and you need something that's gonna last all day and give you that full coverage, you will like this one. Next foundation I have is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Powder Foundation. Now, this is not a liquid. I need all of you guys, if you have oily skin especially, do not feel like you have to wear a liquid foundation. You don't. If you need light to medium coverage and you are very, very oily skin, using a powder foundation instead is going to be your best friend. So that's why I included it in this list, even though it's not liquid. And you guys know I already love this. I have so many, you guys. I have multiple shades. I probably have purchased at least 15 of these over the years. I'm wearing it right now. It's amazing. Very smooth, great pigmentation, doesn't look thick or cakey. It sits on my over 40 skin very nicely. I love it. It's my favorite. So the price of this one is $40. I love the packaging of it. It has room for a sponge underneath. I think Rihanna does just a great job with this shape that's unique to her brand. The shade range of this is 50 colors. You definitely will find a color that works for you. She's the queen of inclusivity and having great shade ranges. The base formula of this is powder, and I want to do a swatch for you all to see. So the pigmentation of this is medium pigmentation. Do you see how it's not overly thick and cakey, but when I go to blend it on the skin, it has such a finely milled, smooth texture. It's not gritty at all. It glides on the skin. It sits on top beautifully without sinking into fine lines and pores, but it does have pigmentation. So a lot of people who may not like this are probably looking for something with sheer coverage. This is gonna give you coverage. So I personally like it because I need extra coverage here next to my nose. I make this look very smooth and mattified, even though I have pores the size of the Grand Canyon. This covers them. So I'm a fan. The best way to apply this, you guys, don't use the sponge it comes with. I'm sorry, Rihanna, I don't like the sponge. I think it's crap. Get these sponges from Amazon. They're the thin triangle sponges, 10 bucks for a big old bag. It works amazing. I always apply it with this little sponge, and I just tap it wherever I need it. And I have one of these in my purse at all times. So if I need to touch up, I start getting oily, this is what I mattify my skin with. It's great. Can you tell this is one of my favorites, you guys? Okay, who is this foundation best for? It is great for combination to oily skin. If you're wearing it as a powder on top of liquid foundation. If you're wearing it alone just as a foundation, super oily skin. If your face is very slick, very oily throughout the day, using this instead of a liquid is going to really mattify your skin and make it last a lot longer. But make sure you guys lock it down with the spreading spray. I've done tutorials on that if you need to see it. Lock it down, it'll last forever. Next foundation we have is the Haus Labs Triclone Skin Tech Foundation. Whew, that is a mouthful. Brands need to like just make it simple, you guys. Okay, so the price of this one is $49. I think it's a great price range considering the quality of this. It has a thick glass bottle. Packaging is beautiful. The shade range of this is 51 colors, so great shade range. I think pretty much everyone can find a shade that's at least close to them. And the base formula of this one is silicone based, just like most others. And the finish of this one is natural finish. So it's not matte. But the reason I'm including it in this video, even though it's not a matte foundation, is because if you have kind of oily skin and you want something that's going to give you the illusion of that dewy skin trend that we've had for the last several years, this may be a great option for you because it's not dewy, but it still has a bit of shine to it. So mixed in with your oily skin, I think it could give you that dewy effect without slipping off your face and being a greasy chicken wing. So let me show you the texture of this one. The coverage of this one is medium to full coverage. I feel like for me, it's actually more full coverage. Look how much that covered my hand. So do you see how it has a bit of sheen to it? Once it dries down, it's not going to be this shiny. It's going to turn more of a natural finish, so like a satin type of formula. The viscosity of this is thin, so I really like applying this one either with a stippling brush or a buffing brush because it's thin enough that it'll move around on the skin and it buffs in beautifully. So I personally will buff it in. And who I think this is best for, I would say combination skin that can tend to get oily throughout the day, but it's not super oily. Those who are looking for a thin formula. So if you're over 40, you have texture in your skin, pores and all of that, you want a lightweight formula that still gives you full coverage, this would be one that I would reach for. My full glam girls who don't like a heavy foundation, you want that dewy kind of look, you have a combination to slightly oily skin, this is your girl. Okay, next foundation I have is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Foundation. This is a great drugstore option, you guys. I got you. I'm not putting just luxury foundations in here. This one I've been using for years because it is very full coverage. It is matte. It lasts a long time, but there's some stipulations I've got around this because not everyone's gonna love this. Some of you out there be like, I can't, she put this on the list. I hate that foundation, whatever. I've got stipulations. So first off, the price of this is $12. Great price, you guys. It has a glass bottle, a pump. For this type of packaging, you guys, and how much they're paying for it, I will say this, I don't know how they're making money on this at $12. I think they're undercharging for how much they're paying for this product. I'm just saying that. Don't hate me, but $12, incredible price. The shade range is 24 colors. So that's the thing with drugstore foundations. Sometimes you don't get a wide range. So it's hit or miss on whether you're gonna find a color that matches for you. But at $12, it's kind of like a give and take there. The base formula of this one is also silicone based, so it works great on its own, on bare skin, or with a primer underneath. And the finish of this one is matte. It is very matte. It's not demi matte. It is matte, like dry as a desert matte. I'll show you how I use this one. The coverage of this is full coverage. If you're one of those people that likes that light and kind of dewy and it looks like skin finish, this is not your foundation. You are not going to like it. I'm just going to say that. And the viscosity of this is thick. Let me show you. I put one pump on. That sucker is not budging. She is thick, but I'm going to show you how to use this. So the tool you're going to use is a sponge. Don't use a brush. Don't use a stippling brush. Don't use a buffing brush. It's going to get patchy. It's going to stick to your brush. It's not going to work. You have to use a sponge and you have to do a tapping technique like this. If you swipe it, it's going to stick on your skin. It's going to be patchy. It's going to look thick and cakey. You've got to stipple it on just like this. I'm actually wearing a little bit on the center of my face today because I started getting a bit oily and I need something to mattify my skin. And you guys, when I put it down, it looked really beautiful because I didn't have to use a lot of powder because it's so matte. It was like sucked it in. So the best audience that this is going to be for, I need you guys to listen to me on this one, is not for everyone. This is for my oily skin people. Oily skin, or if you're like me and you have combination skin, you just use it on the center of your face where you will get oily, and it's full coverage. So this is my oily skin people who love full coverage, who need that thicker viscosity, and they want high pigmentation to really just hide everything. That's who this is for. If you have dry skin, if you're mature, I wouldn't recommend this, you guys. Don't send me hate mail. Be like, this foundation sucks. I wasted my $12. I told you guys, if you're over 40 of dry skin, don't buy this. You're gonna hate it. Okay, next foundation I have is another drugstore one. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation. So this one is $15 and it's in a squeeze tube. So I feel like just packaging wise, the price of this a little bit more. It's in a squeeze tube, which is a little bit cheaper to make versus the Milani, but still good foundation. The shade range of this one is $19. L'Oreal, you guys have lots of money. I've seen your checkbook. It's thick. It's really thick. We need more than 19 colors for this one here. So that's the only thing I'm gonna say. It doesn't have enough colors that I think it should. It's for how big the brand is. The base formula of this one is silicone based. Wear it with a primer, wear it without, it'll work fine. The finish of this one is matte. It is not demi matte in my opinion. It is matte, and this is full coverage as well. So this one kind of reminds me of the Milani one, but it's not quite as thick. It's not quite as thick. You see how it's moderately thick? So that's the viscosity, moderately thick. There's a little bit of movement here. Me personally, I would still apply this with a sponge because it's matte and can tend not to move as easily. Even though it has a medium viscosity, I think sponge is just gonna give you a better result. So just stipple it on like this. You could try a stippling brush too, but I think sponge is your best bet. And it is full coverage. So do you see my hand there? Look at the mask of my hand that it is. It is full coverage. So this foundation will be best for those who have oily skin. I don't recommend it for over 40. I think it's gonna enhance your texture and all that, but if you are slightly younger or you have not a lot of lines or pores on your skin, you need full coverage, matte finish foundation that lasts all day, then you would enjoy this one. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you guys, it's sweat resistant. So if you have a job where you are sweating it up, you live in a very hot and humid climate like Texas, it is so hot here, then you would like this one as well because it's sweat resistant and long wearing. Next foundation I have is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless. You guys, it's a staple. It's been around for a while, but for whatever reason lately, I keep reaching for this one. It is so good. It reminds me of the Estee Lauder, which we're gonna talk about next, but it's a drugstore version. It's great, and I'll tell you why. So the price of this is $11, and it comes in a glass bottle like this. My only complaint is it doesn't have a pump, so it sucks. The packaging, you have to pour it out. That's the only thing, but glass bottle, $11? $11. Really inexpensive. The shade range of this is 40 colors. You have a great option to find a color that is gonna work for you. And the base formula of this is silicone base. So again, wear it with any primer if you want. And the finish of this one is matte finish. I would say demi matte to matte finish. And the viscosity is medium thin. So let me show you, you've gotta pour it out. Like I said, it doesn't have a pump on here. So medium thin, do you see how that's rolling down the hand? So me personally, I will take a buffing brush like this and I will buff it into the skin. Because it's thin, it won't soak into a sponge, and using that buffing motion really works it into the skin because it's a thin formula, so I need it to glide over the skin. You guys, it's beautiful. I wear this foundation a lot during the summer in Texas when it's hot out. Even though I have combination skin, I can get oily at times, and this is one that I'll reach for. So this foundation I think would be best for those who have combination to oily skin, all age ranges. I think young all the way to over 40 plus. I think this would work really well for those who want a medium to buildable coverage, so it looks like skin, it's not thick, it's not cakey. I think honestly this works for a lot of people, and that's why it's such a classic, because there's not a lot of people this wouldn't work for. I think if you just have really dry skin, don't get this, but again, combination to oily, all age ranges, fantastic. Okay, then our last foundation, dun dun dun, it is the Estee Lauder Double Wear. You guys knew I was gonna put this on here. She is the OG. She's like me, she's been around for a long time. Estee Lauder Double Wear is such a great foundation because it is full coverage, but it's thin formula. So it's not gonna get thick or cakey. It blends beautifully. So I feel like this works for all age ranges. But our criteria, I'm getting ahead of myself. The price range of this is $52. They keep jacking up the prices a little bit, but I still will pay it. I paid it just a couple weeks ago. I got another bottle of this because I keep wearing it. The shade range is 56 colors. Great shade range. I feel like everyone can find a color that works for them. And the base formula formula of this is silicone based, so I wear it over primers. It sits beautifully. I've worn it without primers, still looks great. The finish of this is demi matte, so it's not super flat, and I think that's why this works for so many people, is because it doesn't make you look oily. When you first apply, it's gonna have some shine, but I'm gonna give this a minute to dry down so you guys can see. It looks like skin, but more mattified, smooth skin, if that makes sense. The coverage of this is full coverage, and the viscosity, like I said, is medium thin. So I personally have applied it a couple different ways. I've used a buffing brush, and that's usually how I apply it. Or if I'm doing a full face, I'm in a hurry, I will use a stippling brush like this and just stipple it on really quickly. Flawless finish, flawless, beautiful. I'm trying to get this to dry down, you guys. It takes a minute to dry down, that's the only thing, but that's great because it gives you time to kind of work it into the skin. And then after about a minute and 30 seconds or so, it's gonna set and it'll just look like beautiful demi matte skin. Okay, so this is best for combination to oily skin, all age ranges. Over 40 looks great. Younger audience, great. Those who want full coverage on something that's long lasting, I have tested this foundation for up to 18 hours and it has lasted. It started to fade a little bit. Like if I touch my skin or I scratch my cheek or something, it'll start to come off, but overall it lasts a really long time. So long wearing, full coverage, lightweight formula, all shade ranges. I think you would love this foundation. Okay, you guys, so let me know in the comments below if this was helpful for you in your makeup shopping. Come back next week, we'll do another makeup video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week for some makeup education.